The competition changes when you move inside. It's not about power and aggression anymore, but the skill and ability of the driver. Who's going to flourish in the tight arena confines? This is Geared Up. Welcome to the Virginia Horse Center just outside Lexington, Virginia. My name is Ryan Titus, and as always, I'm joined by Austin Ashley. Now, Austin, we're indoors for the first time all season. That's a totally different environment. What should we expect today?
Yeah, definitely can expect a little bit more consistent track conditions, and we can expect all four of these drivers going head-to-head. We have really a battle of Virginia versus South Carolina here. Let's see who can come out on top.
Now, let's go ahead and jump into the Stunt Showdown. And first out, it's going to be Brittney Ames in Crime Time.
Yeah, and Brittney, we saw at our first stop really hone in on her skills in the Stunt Showdown here. Let's see what she has today in Lexington.
And look at that, blasting the backside of the racing ramp right there. A hard landing on the back. It bounces way back up in the air. That truck loves to sky wheelie, and she just proved it right there.
Yeah, and just last week we also saw this truck piloted by her husband Daniel, and actually saw an issue with the truck after Freestyle, after the first show. So it looks like that truck is back to 100%.
And as she launches the nose of that truck back up in the air, yeah, we've definitely seen a rotation of drivers in this truck so far this season. This was an awesome way to start out the Stunt Showdown, a beautiful sky wheelie. And look at that landing on the back, rebounding at least 7 or 8 feet back up in the air. A score of 25, a good score to start out. That's what they're going to have to beat.
Yeah, and coming out next, it's really a regular that we have here on Geared Up. It's Vowell and Virginia Giant coming out there with that first hit off the backside. Not quite the angle he was looking for on that first hit.
Yeah, it looked like he tapped the brake in the air, and that stops the front end, stops the nose of the truck from launching up in the air. As he goes for his second hit right now, he kind of does the same thing. He didn't quite get the sky wheelies like Crime Time did, and as the score comes up, it's going to be a 23. That's going to fall 2 points short.
And we talked about Virginia. This is the second half of Virginia out here. Brandon Derrow, bad news travels fast, known for his wheelies, not necessarily getting that angle, just like we saw with Vowell in his first attempt as well. Let's see if Brandon can turn it around for the second hit.
Yeah, we talk about this, I guess, impromptu battle of Virginia versus South Carolina. Bad news of Virginia Giant versus Crime Time and Culture Shock. And Crime Time came out first with some great sky wheelies, and South Carolina's in the lead right now. As Brandon is lining up the jammer here. If he gets a sky wheelie, a slap wheelie right here, he can turn that around real quick. And that's the biggest air we've seen so far, but it wasn't quite as vertical as Brittney got. And as the scores come up, it's a 24. So Crime Time, South Carolina, still in the lead.
Yeah, Brandon looked to be looking for that slap wheelie here, but someone that is usually really good at slap wheelies as well is Preston Pèrez in Culture Shock. He's up next. Let's see if we can get one on this crazy Stunt Showdown. And there it is.
Yeah, he gets the slap wheelie. At indoor arenas, it can be hard to get a slap wheelie. There's just not much room to run one out, right? But Preston got lucky there. Basically, he slap wheelied into his own pit stall, into the area he was parked at before. So that's something the other trucks really couldn't have done.
Yeah, 100%. Anything to get that little extra edge is what these drivers are looking for. It looks to be that he's lining up for a second slap wheelie attempt here off that jammer.
Yeah, he hit the brake tap to get the front end to slam down and bounce back up, but it just didn't quite work out for him. As we take a look at the replay here, this first hit was what really stood out to me. A nice bit of air, slamming the front end down and getting that slap wheelie. That was perfect. And look at the score right there, a 26. Culture Shock wins the Stunt Showdown.
We're having fun. We're pretty sure you guys will be having fun too. That was just the start. We're going to do some quads. We've got a lot more action still coming. Make some noise for Preston Pèrez Culture Shock.
And now that we have the Stunt Showdown down, we're heading into qualifying here. Out first is Brittney Ames in Crime Time. These drivers are actually going to be running a course that is not what they're going to be running in racing. It's really just to hone these drivers' skills, get them turning right and left for this qualifying session.
Yeah, so if you want to qualify well and you want to seed into the bracket in a good position, you have to show your skill here in qualifying. Right now, it looks like Brittney is swinging these turns a little bit wide as she crosses the finish line right there, and we wait for the time. It's going to be a 17.65. That's the mark everyone else has to beat.
And coming out next in qualifying, it is Cliff Vowell and Virginia Giant, looking to kind of redeem himself after the Stunt Showdown. Let's see what he has.
Oh man, Austin, did you hear that engine? Something did not sound right on Virginia Giant when he took off the line. It kind of sounded like the transmission slipped a bit.
Yeah, and you know, Cliff, it's kind of been the story of the year. Cliff having some engine issues, also having some issues throughout this time with his rear steering, a time of a 17.13. Let's definitely keep an eye on that sound of that engine with Cliff Vowell and Virginia Giant.
So Virginia Giant takes the lead in qualifying right there, but not by much. Now it's going to be Brandon Derrow in bad news. He's already keeping it tight. He's already staying fast. This is looking like a good run, Austin.
Yeah, this is the most aggressive we've seen any of these drivers take those corners and almost kind of flat tracking around there. Like you said, definitely the fastest that I think that we've seen so far. We'll wait for it, and the time is 14.70, takes the lead in qualifying there.
And not only does he take the lead, he blasts into the lead. Bad News ran about 3 seconds faster than either Crime Time or Virginia Giant did. Now that means that Preston Pèrez and Culture Shock is going to have to be fast right now, and he's already taking the turn tight. This is looking like a good run.
And Preston flying as well through this track, but taking those corners a little bit tighter than what we saw Brandon Derrow kind of fishtail out there, and it shows with the time of a 14.35. He is your fastest qualifier.
Yeah, so by about 0.3 of a second, Culture Shock runs the fastest qualifying pass, and Preston is currently sitting 2 for 2 in tonight's competition. As we take a look at the run that did it, he kept it tight in the turns, tighter than anyone else did, and that's what got him the fastest pass. Hey, next up on Geared Up, it's going to be Virginia versus Virginia in round 1.
Welcome back to Lexington, Virginia, and we still have a couple more stops left here on Geared Up. We have Swansboro, North Carolina, as well as Swansea, New Hampshire coming up here with that big, huge lineup coming up soon.
Yeah, 10 trucks. Swansea was an awesome show. Now, looking at the bracket here today in Lexington, we're going to see Culture Shock take on Crime Time, a battle of the South Carolina trucks, and then Bad News Travels Fast race Virginia Giant, a battle of the Virginia trucks.
Yeah, 100%. You talked about it before. We have this battle between the two teammates, you know, Brittney Ames and Preston Pèrez here, both part of one team, both from South Carolina. Let's see who comes out on top and heads into that final round.
And just a reminder, each of our drivers are competing for an overall event championship. Right now, Preston Pèrez and Culture Shock sits in the lead with the Stunt Showdown victory, and now he's off to a strong start in racing, keeping the turn tight, and it looks like he's in the lead.
Yeah, and you can see these drivers are going on more of a cyclone-style race course where they're going to start out and make their way in over the jumps, and Preston Pèrez taking that win, but seemed to stutter a little bit at the end there. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm not sure if something went awry on Culture Shock or if that was just a small driver error made by Preston. Regardless, he got lucky and Crime Time had issues, so Culture Shock and Preston Pèrez are going to the finals.
And we know who's going to be representing South Carolina, but let's figure out who's going to represent Virginia here in the final round. It's a battle of the two rivals, Cliff Vowell and Virginia Giant, and Brandon Derrow, and Bad News Travels Fast.
Yeah, now last time we saw these two match up, it was Virginia Giant taking a very narrow victory over Bad News. But this is about as close as Brandon Derrow is going to get to home this year, so I'm sure he wants to take a win right here.
And Brandon Derrow leading, it almost seems like Cliff Vowell's having some more issues with that rear steering, having trouble getting around that corner, and kind of finally turning that rear steering at the end of that corner.
Yeah, it looked like the rear steering on Virginia Giant had a delayed response. So Bad News and Brandon Derrow is going to advance to the final round. And that really was a ugly pair of matchups there in round 1. 3 of the 4 competitors, everyone other than Bad News, having some kind of issues there in round 1. But now it's going to be the final round, and it's the first and second fastest qualifiers, Bad News and Culture Shock.
Yeah, like we've been talking about South Carolina, Virginia, it's Chevy, it's Dodge. Let's see who comes out on top. Brandon Derrow with the lead going into the final corner.
And that's not good for Culture Shock right there. It looks like Preston had some kind of rear steering issues right there. And as he falls behind, you see Brandon Derrow, Bad News Travels Fast, crossing the finish line first. He was by far the smoothest throughout that racing bracket.
Yeah, we always talk about Brandon. Really a strong racer out there, always very consistent, and he proved it here tonight and really flat tracked that truck around this racing track. Might have not been the fastest qualifier, but made the rounds here in the racing bracket.
He made it count when it mattered, and that's what he's been doing all season long. Brandon is 8-3 on the 2025 Overdrive Tour. Nobody's won more races than him so far. And with that, Bad News leaps into the lead for the overall event championship with 54 points, but not far behind sits Culture Shock with 51, so it's still anyone's game. Crime Time is in third, and Virginia Giant rounds out the field. As we move into Freestyle, and first out, it's going to be Crime Time.
Yeah, we've seen Brittney really excel in the Stunt Showdown this year, which kind of transcends onto the Freestyle competition, but really want to see her improve a little bit more in the momentum category. She has those huge hits, but let's see also what she can do out here in the Freestyle track and really keep that engine roaring.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to remember about Brittney is that she's by far the least experienced driver in today's lineup. Whereas all the other drivers had years and years of experience, Brittney only started driving full-time earlier this year. And another thing is this is her very first indoor show. You know, I was talking to her earlier today and I said something like, well, at least your first indoor show is fairly spacious, right? At least by indoor arena standards. And she said, oh, you have no idea. When you're jumping the truck inside, it feels like the walls are closing in on you. So this is a great opportunity for her to go outside her comfort zone and get some experience in the tight confines. And Austin, look at this. She's gone for a nose wheelie.
Yeah, we haven't seen this from Brittney before. Like, you just got done talking about it. Her being a rookie, really trying for those veteran moves.
Oh, man.
And can't pull it off, but still you got to tip your hat to Brittney for even going for this. Like you said, it's her first year, so going for those super advanced tricks, especially on a track like this where the dirt really isn't necessarily holding up, you have to tip your hat to her.
Yeah, the dirt here is pretty loose, and the tires on the front of Crime Time are like pretty dang bald. It's going to be hard to get a nose wheelie here today for sure, and especially for a rookie, right? Even Preston, who's fully capable of popping a nose wheelie, said it was going to be tough. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone else goes for it tonight.
Yeah, and Brittney out here representing the Crime Time name very well. You see her, it seems like she might be pulling it to a stop, and the score comes through of a 23 for that freestyle run. A good score to start off this freestyle competition.
Yeah, a respectable freestyle right there, absolutely. Now we're gonna move from one of our South Carolina competitors to one of our Virginia competitors. It's Cliff Vowell, Virginia Giant, and Austin already, I think Cliff is having issues. It didn't look like the rear steering turn right there. He swung that turn very wide, and yeah,
and this has been an issue that we've seen persist throughout the entire year. I think we really saw it rear its head in Bristol with him struggling to get that rear steering aligned to go over that over-under jump. Then we saw it also the last event there in Boonesboro where you saw him going through his freestyle run without rear steering, and it seems to be biting him.
Yeah, sometimes the truck just doesn't want to cooperate with you, and Virginia Giant has been having a lot of mechanical problems this year, right? You still see the Band-Aid on the body from his crash in Bristol. Now, I mentioned earlier about how this is a fairly spacious indoor arena, and that's really helping Cliff out here. You know, if we were in a tight little shoebox arena, he would be constantly making three-point turns every time he got to the end of the track. So the large floor space here is allowing him to keep the flow and the noise up with this run, even with the rear steering issues.
Yeah, 100%. And it seems like that rear steering's coming back a little bit. You see him throwing it into a donut and getting a good tight revolution in this donut.
Yeah, I guess the rear steering has a mind of its own today. That was a good donut. You know, for decades, well, really since the Thunder National days, this truck has been known for doing some awesome donuts. Now remember, the score to beat is a 23 from Crime Time. As hey, right there, Cliff gets maybe the biggest air we saw out of his whole run right there, and he's going to wrap it up. Hey, a score of 27. That is going to put him in the lead and put him into the lead by a good amount. That's the new score to jump over.
And next up in freestyle, it is your current event leader, Brandon Derrow. Bad news travels fast. He's coming out here and he wants that overall event championship.
Yeah, and he can lock up that overall championship with a score of 27 or higher right here in freestyle. That being said, so far this season, Bad News has only been averaging a freestyle score of 23.8. Now, if he doesn't get that 27 right here, Brandon can still win the overall. It just means there's a chance that if Culture Shock scores high enough in freestyle, Preston could come from behind and win the overall.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, but Brandon really coming out here with a lot of aggression, possibly the most aggressive run we've seen from him all season here in the freestyle competition. You can see him really carrying that momentum from hit to hit and hitting those jumps a little bit bigger than he has in previous events.
Yeah, this being an indoor show, all the jumps are very close together. And Brandon really knows how to wheel this truck from jump to jump very efficiently. Now, those two things combined means that this has been a very fast-paced run, and he's made a lot of hits in a short amount of time. I mean, I'd be willing to bet that Bad News has already made more hits than Crime Time or Virginia Giant.
Yeah, and there's also something to say that the last event was a mud show, and these drivers really had to have their foot to the floor to get any kind of momentum out there, whether it was racing or freestyle. They also could be just used to having their foot to the floor just to get traction in the mud, but now we're not seeing those muddy conditions this weekend.
Yeah, I know the drivers are happy about that. And hey, all of these trucks were there in Boonesboro last weekend. Look at how clean all of them are. I know each driver, each team owner spent hours and hours pressure washing their truck. And Austin, you and I took a look at Bad News before the show started. We were looking for mud, any speck of dust or dirt. Did we find anything?
No, I did not find a single thing on that truck. And there you go. Brandon Derrow with an incredible run, waving out to the fans there in Lexington. Let's check out some highlights. We saw some good air out of Brandon in this run, and it shows with the score of a 29 here, taking the lead.
Not only does that take the lead, but it secures the overall championship for Bad News. Culture Shock is mathematically eliminated. That being said, I know Preston would love to play spoiler right now and beat Bad News in freestyle. Let's learn more about the driver of Culture Shock.
My name is Preston Pèrez, and I drive the Culture Shock monster truck. Loved monster trucks my whole entire life. It was always just a dream of mine, so I would volunteer, push a shop room if I had to, any grunt work, and it was in 2015 that Sam Sturgis with Nasty Boy Monster Truck gave me a chance to compete, and from there it just became a thing, and any opportunity I could get, I would take, and I've worked for a lot of different teams. This truck here, this is 21 different identities now. The story behind the Culture Shock name, I actually didn't come up with it. Team owner Daniel Ames came up with it. When I joined the team, we were discussing a little bit about what identity I should run, and when we got to talking, we realized we kind of have the same similar story where both of us, we barely really even knew how to use duct tape, lived real sheltered lives when we grew up, and basically what the name of Culture Shock is and what the character on it represents too. It's like a nerdy white-collar worker guy that's coming into a mechanic. And that's pretty much our story, back in the Monster Jam days, people said the advanced auto parts grinder. Lupe would say it was the people's truck. Well, I'd like to say this is the truck for the industry. It's super fan dominated. Guys that have just had a dream came in here and wanted to make something of it. They're pushing this industry and this sport to a new level, and this truck, I would say, is a representation of that. My primary goal at the end of each show, honestly, it's to just get out there, do a good job, dominate, be the truck that's on top, and make sure that all the fans that paid their hard-earned money to be here, that they're getting the show that they want, deserve.
And with that being said, I don't think Preston necessarily cares that he lost out on that overall event championship. I think he's still going to come out here and put on a show for this freestyle competition and possibly get the trophy in freestyle.
Yeah, if anything, I think Preston might have a bit of anger, maybe a chip on his shoulder after losing in the racing finals. And if he takes it out on the truck, this should be a good show right here.
Yeah, 100%. And we've talked about it this season. It might be a little bit of a culture shock in and of itself. Seeing Preston Pèrez in this different identity, you know, a lot of fans are used to seeing him in that toxic identity with the Snyders, taking a little bit of a step back. Preston really taking ownership of this culture shock identity this season, being the sole driver that we've seen for the most part.
Yeah, Austin, you know, it's interesting. Preston took over as the driver for Culture Shock a few months ago, but almost every show he's done since then has been muddy. So he hasn't really gotten a feel for what this truck is like truly capable of. So right now, what you're watching is pretty much his first freestyle on the truck where the track is dry and the truck is working properly. So he's learning how this truck operates as he goes right now. And so far, he's doing a solid job. I'd say he's at least keeping up with Bad News' run, if not topping it.
100%. And definitely something to note is Toxic was a PEI chassis there. Culture Shock also being a PEI. So it is a little bit familiar to him. Every truck is set up different though. So like you said, him not having those dry shows really yet, this is really kind of his chance to kind of test into this truck and see what it has.
Yeah, one thing you might be noticing about this run so far is the sparks coming from under the truck. Now that's coming from the brake rotors. You know, in an arena like this, Preston's probably been using the brakes a lot to get the truck to turn around. And when those brakes get hot, they get red hot and spark up just like that. And hey, look at that, a slap wheelie to boot. As he pulls in, that was the perfect way to end out his run.
Yeah, a great run. You know, our score to beat is a 29. We'll see what the scores come in, but that definitely at least comes close. I think it's a contender for the win.
Yeah, he's gonna need a perfect score to do it, and shooting the sparks out right here definitely helped. Yes, a perfect 30 for Culture Shock. Preston Pèrez wins freestyle. What an awesome way to wrap up the first show today as Preston steps out of the truck. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Bad News wins the overall and keeps the hardware in Virginia with a final tally of 83, only 2 points above Culture Shock. It doesn't get much closer than that, with Virginia Giant and Crime Time rounding out the field. Hey, show 2 starts next and Crime Time is going big.
And welcome back to Lexington, Virginia for show 2 here with the Overdrive Monster Truck Tour. You can see some track prep going on. Also, these drivers working on their trucks. A good-looking guy walking out there in the background. Cliff Vowell working on that engine. We heard some issues in the first show. Let's see if they affect him today in this second show. But first, the first competition, it's a Stunt Showdown, and Brittney aims in Crime Time.
Now, she almost won the Stunt Showdown earlier today with moves like that.
Oh!
That was a hard landing on the rear, and already I'm seeing a couple broken tie rods hanging, Austin.
Yeah, that looks to be a whole lot of damage, as they say in the infomercials. You know, Brittney really been skying that truck, and the truck just could not take that much weight on the back end there.
Yeah, we saw this truck take some hard landings earlier today, and those parts can only take so much stress before they finally give way. A score of 20, and all things considered, you know, only making one hit, that's a pretty good score. But at this point, I think that team is more concerned with the condition of the truck rather than the points. Now, it's Cliff Vowell and Virginia Giant.
Yeah, we saw Cliff working on that truck between shows. Let's see if his work paid off. And you see some good hit for his first hit, but not quite, you know, the verticality that we're looking for in this Stunt Showdown necessarily. Let's see what he has for his second hit.
As he's lining up the nose wheelie ramp, and more of the same thing. Not quite getting as vertical as Crime Time, but I mean, hey, at least he made 2 hits and he's parking the truck under its own power. Virginia Giant scores a 22, which puts him in the lead at the moment as we move on with Brandon Derrow in Bad News, a fellow Virginian. He's going straight for the jammer. And Austin, I think the ramps were steepened for tonight's show. That was a good vertical wheelie.
Yeah, and a testament to the track crew out there with the Overdrive Tour, really working on those ramps between shows to make sure that these drivers can get the utmost pop on this Stunt Showdown and the freestyle competition. Brandon line up for the second hit, and a beautiful position sky wheelie there as well.
Yeah, the score to beat is a 22, and yes, a 26. Bad News cruises in the lead at the moment with those 2 awesome sky wheelies. Now, a 26 was a score that won this competition earlier today, so we'll have to see if that score holds up.
100%. And coming up next, it is Preston Pèrez in Culture Shock. He was a winner of the Stunt Showdown earlier on today, coming on out there and going for that sky wheelie to slab wheelie combination. Let's see what he has for the second hit.
Yeah, I like that first move. Maybe the most vertical sky wheelie we've seen all day long. And getting the truck up in the air to boot. You know, it looked like the truck wanted to slap wheelie, but he bounced a little towards the wall and, just couldn't ride it out. Now, Preston's eyeing out the jammer obstacle. And hey, launching towards the sky. And I think he wanted a slap wheelie, but that just didn't quite work out. Regardless, that was a great pair of hits. I think that just might win it, Austin.
Yeah, you see that beautifully positioned sky wheelie. You saw a lot of air off of that hit as well. You gotta imagine that the judges take that into consideration. They do with the score of a 29. He's your winner of the Stunt Showdown once again.
So Culture Shock is looking good, but teammate Crime Time is not. Let's talk to driver Brittney Ames about what happened.
Yeah, so best trick, I went out and I was trying for a sky wheelie, and I definitely completed that, but the truck could not hold up. It completely ripped the rear housing apart, the steering rams. It actually blew the tab that those rams connect to completely off, so there was a gaping hole in the rear of the housing there, but we're definitely gonna get that fixed as soon as possible to get back out at the action.
So yeah, a hole in the axle housing, that's not something you see every day. That team has got a lot of work before Crime Time is going to be back on the track. So unfortunately, she's done for tonight. But now let's take a look at qualifying. This is Virginia Giant.
Yeah, and with that being said, with Crime Time being out, we're going to see a little bit of a change to the format here, where each of the 3 trucks that are competing are actually going to go on 2 qualifying passes, and then whoever has the slowest time out of the 6 passes will not make the racing bracket, and then we'll have a final grudge match to determine the racing winner of the 2 fastest people in qualifying. And you see Cliff Vowell putting a good number out there as well with a 27.51.
Yeah, so that's the time to beat right now. You may have also noticed we lengthened the qualifying track tonight, so now they have to make an additional turn and jump to complete their pass. Now, let's take a look at Brandon Derrow in Bad News Travels Fast. He qualified second earlier today, but made it count when it mattered and made it all the way to the finals and won racing. And once again, he's looking fast.
Yeah, Brandon, always a fast competitor out there, like you said. And he's really flat tracking this truck around this course. Is it enough, though, to beat a 27.51? We'll have to see here.
Yeah, Brandon loves to race, and he stays smooth, kicking the back end of that truck out like that. And at 21.33, that's going to blow into the lead right now. So now, Bad News holds the time to beat in qualifying. But now it's the fastest qualifier from earlier today, that being Culture Shock, and Preston keeping it tight in the first turn. It looks like he's moving fast. I think he's keeping up with Bad News right now.
Yeah, and a little bit of a bobble in that turn right there that we just saw. Let's see if he can make it up and top that time of the 21.33.
And as he crosses the finish line, it's going to be a 20.67. So once again, Culture Shock bests Bad News in qualifying. But Austin, as you mentioned earlier, we're running a second round of qualifying tonight. And right now, Virginia Giant is sitting on the bump spot, but he's got a second chance to make the bracket right here. But that's probably not going to help him, swinging super wide in that turn.
Yeah, and we've talked about it earlier. Cliff's still seeming to struggle with that rear steering issues. That's definitely plaguing him in this qualifying bracket. And you can tell by his time so far, he hasn't been necessarily up to snuff with what we usually see Cliff Vowell in racing.
Yeah, it's been a rough season for Cliff, and at a 24.24, that was about 3 seconds faster than his pass earlier, but that's not going to be enough to get him into the bracket. We already know that Bad News and Culture Shock are going to face off in this grudge match, but you know what? They're going to come out and make some passes either way. I know they both want to be the fastest qualifiers, so let's see what Brandon can do right here.
Yeah, and Bad News certainly does travel fast, especially this weekend here in Lexington, Virginia. Brandon Derrow has been super fast. You can already see his second pass starting off super strong here. You know, definitely wants as much seat time as he can get on this track, as well as Preston Pèrez gearing up for that final round. Let's see what Brandon and Derrow's time is for that second qualifying pass.
And Bad News running a 20.42. Not only a whole second faster than his pass earlier, but topping Culture Shock's time by a quarter second. Now, I know Preston wants to take that fastest qualifier spot again, so let's see what he can do right now. He's off the line fast and making a good turn, it looks like.
Yeah, and Preston, like you mentioned, had the fastest time in that first round of qualifying passes, so he's looking to earn that fast qualifier position back here in this second round of qualifying.
He's looking smooth as well, just like Bad News. As he crosses the finish line, it's going to come down to the wire, waiting on the time, and he's not going to get it. Bad News takes the top qualifier position as Culture Shock turns in a 21.06. That's about half a second slower than his run earlier.
And that sets the stage for the final round. We have a rematch of our final round from earlier today in Lexington, Virginia. It is a battle of South Carolina against Virginia. It is the hometown guy. It is Chevrolet. It is Ram. Let's see who comes away on top. It's Brandon Derrow and Preston Pèrez.
Yeah, and look at Preston steering right into the turn. It looks like he's got a small lead right now, but I think Brandon and Bad News is caught up.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's a close race here. Let's see when they come across the line who comes out on top, and I can't call that.
I don't know either, Austin. That was about as close as it gets, and we weren't lined up with the finish line, but the official call coming in is that Bad News travels fast, takes the racing win.
Yeah, and we're taking a look at the replay. This track is won and lost in the corners, and how quickly these drivers can get back on that throttle pedal in that corner, and that's what helped Brandon Derrow come away with that win there.
So Bad News takes his second racing championship today, and Cliff playing around right there. So far in this evening's show, Virginia and South Carolina each have one competition win, but it's Virginia, Bad News, sitting in the lead for the overall, but only by 2 points, even tighter than the first show today. Culture Shock sits in second, Virginia Giant third, and unfortunately, Crime Time is done for tonight. Who's going to win the overall? Freestyle will determine that, and it's up next.
Welcome back to Lexington, Virginia. See the beautiful Hog Wild Monster Truck Ride experience, throwing out some t-shirts there, but it's time for the final event here in Lexington, Virginia. It's Freestyle, and up first, it's Cliff Vowell in Virginia Giant.
You know, Austin, so far every single victory this weekend has gone to either Bad News or Culture Shock. Now, since Crime Time is done for tonight, Virginia Giant is the last truck that can play spoiler. You know, I'm sure Cliff would love to leave Lexington with the win, especially since he's got a number of fans watching him right now. Virginia Giant was definitely the most popular truck at the pit party earlier today.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see Cliff have a really good run going on here, especially with all the mechanical problems that he's been having. You know, Cliff out there all by himself a lot of these shows, working on that truck all by himself. Kind of more akin to, you know, Gary Porter and Carolina Crusher back in the day, really being a one-man band for himself. So it's really nice to see Cliff put together a strong run with a healthy truck.
Yeah, a jack of all trades for sure. You know, Cliff tires up the truck, he drives it, he fixes it, he packs it up, and he hauls it to the next one all by himself. So a one-man band, absolutely. It's good to see him out here with the rear steering responding right now, and that's helping him move around the track a little quicker.
And Cliff really running this beautiful old school type body out here, really representing all the old school trucks out there, representing the Virginia Giant name well, you know, a name back in the day with Theo Wilson. Cliff has really carried on the legacy of the Virginia Giant very proudly and doing an amazing job with it.
Oh yeah, you know, Lexington isn't too far from Fishersville, Virginia, where Theo Wilson promoted a fairly iconic show at for years and years, and ran his truck at it as well. And you can see Cliff kind of intimidating Bad News right there. Hey, Virginia Giant wraps it up and scores a 22. That's a solid run, and that's the mark that Brandon Derrow and Bad News is now going to have to leap over.
Yeah, Brandon came away with that overall event championship the first show, but to get it this show, you'll need to score a 28 or higher to absolutely secure and lock up that overall event championship. Let's see if you can do it.
Yeah, so once again, it comes down to Bad News and Culture Shock as contenders for the overall. Brandon went for a slap wheelie right there. It just didn't work out. You know, Austin, the confines of this arena kind of forced the drivers to change their plan of attack from what they might otherwise do at an outdoor track. You know, it's not about the big air anymore like it was last week. but now more about the sky wheelies, because that's just what this track physically allows for.
Brandon really going hard for his hometown crowd here. You know, he's not far down the road. We talked about Cliff not being too far. Brandon's super close as well. So he definitely wants to put on a show for all the people that really are around his hometown.
Yeah, Brandon's maybe an hour and a half or so from home. So, you know, up in the grandstands is Pops, as we call him. That's Brandon's dad. He's kind of an icon, like an icon behind the scenes, I guess you could say. You know, he'll talk to Brandon over the radio throughout the show, and today he's got a couple of buddies up there, and they're just, you know, chilling, hanging out, watching the show, watching Brandon right now. And hey, look at that. Maybe the best wheelie we've seen out of Bad News all weekend long. Sticking the wheelie bar down in the dirt. Now, that's what these old PEI chassis like to do. This truck is probably about 20 years old, maybe a little bit older. And hey, it's still doing good. It's still getting wheelies out here.
Yeah, some beautiful positioning on that sky wheelie. We saw some good sky wheelies out of him in the Stunt Showdown as well, and he's really taken what he learned from the Stunt Showdown and really taking what he learned from racing with this fast momentum and putting them all together for this freestyle.
Yeah, you know, the three trucks making freestyle tonight, they're all PEIs, but they all kind of handle and react differently. It's interesting. You know, every team puts their own parts on, and you end up with three very unique trucks. And hey, as we look at some replays right here of that run, the slap really just wasn't happening tonight, unfortunately, but this was awesome.
And some beautiful sky wheelies throughout that run. Brandon really putting on a show, getting that nose high. You know, you want that perfect 90-degree angle. But you see, it comes through a score of a 24. He takes the lead over Cliff Vowell, Virginia Giant.
Well, now there's only one truck to go, and that's going to be the driver who won freestyle earlier today, Preston Pèrez in Culture Shock. And as Preston blasts on the track, let's talk to him about what it takes to be a successful driver.
All I know is that every time I hit the track, or even when I'm just wrenching on these trucks, you know, I give it my all. It doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter if there's 5 people in the stands or 100,000 people in the stands. You know, I try to put on the best show that I can every single time and just do the best that I can do for the goals that I have set forth.
Yeah, and I can definitely second that. Preston definitely giving his all no matter what venue we are at, how many people are in the stands. And you can see he needs a 27 to secure that overall event championship that he did win. Currently, his average freestyle score is a 28.3, so he's definitely capable of doing this.
Yeah, Brandon left a little room at the top, and you have to remember, Preston got a perfect score in freestyle earlier today, a perfect 30. So if he can match that run or come close to it, there's a very good chance that that overall is going back to South Carolina. Now, that being said, I should mention that our judge tonight is not the same judge we had earlier today. And hey, that was a nice jump right there. He's got good flow. This is looking like a good run.
Yeah, and Preston and Brandon kind of going back and forth throughout this entire weekend here in Lexington with qualifying, Stunt Showdown, racing, and it almost seems like freestyle as well. You know, really both of them going after each other and making this rivalry between South Carolina and Virginia really alive.
Yeah, they're making each other work for every single win. As Preston, it's a little lost there. Like, you know, in case some of our viewers missed our first episode from Fayetteville, this is actually the old XDP diesel monster truck. You know, it's the first diesel monster truck to do a backflip, really the first competitive diesel monster truck. It ran in Monster Jam as Extreme Diesel. So a lot of history in this truck. Actually, if you look underneath the fiberglass hood, there's still an XDP sticker on the Lexan down by the pedals.
Yeah, and I'm surprised it's even still there with that truck. Also coming away with a Crash Madness award there over in Monster Jam. Preston Pèrez, of course, no stranger to also Crash Madness himself, as he seems to be pulling that truck to a stop for this freestyle run.
So he's going to wrap it up right there, and I think it's going to be pretty close between Bad News and Culture Shock. Preston got some awesome sky wheelies, but Bad News maybe had a little bit better flow, a little bit better momentum. Right here on this last hit, Preston got all twisted up, and yes, a score of 27. That's going to do it. So Culture Shock wins the final freestyle here in Lexington, and not just that, Preston also takes the second overall event championship. back to South Carolina with a final tally of 81. Only 1 point ahead of Bad News. It doesn't get much closer than that. Virginia Giant in third, and Crime Time with issues tonight.
Yeah, it doesn't get much closer, like you said. This battle of the states here in Lexington brought some carnage and some super close competition.
Yeah, it was a constant back and forth between Bad News and Culture Shock, and that rivalry is going to continue at our next show in Swansboro, North Carolina on Geared Up.